Sagittarius, a grandmother's spirit visits you in dreams. She's sending you love from the beyond. Sagittarius, there are moments, often when the world is quiet and sleep has softened your thoughts, where something otherworldly enters your dream. Perhaps it's the image of her eyes, impossibly familiar, or the way she calls your name, not from memory, but from a place that feels more real than waking life. You may wake up in tears, confused by how clearly you felt her, and yet something in you knows. It wasn't just a dream. It was her. Your grandmother. The one whose hands once held you, or perhaps the one you never met in this life, but who has always been woven into your soul's tapestry. She has not left you. In fact, she's been closer than ever. Watching, loving, waiting for you to notice the way she reaches you through the realm of dreams. Sagittarius, your dreams are not random. They are sacred doorways. And lately, Spirit has been whispering to you through them, reminding you that you are not alone, that you are loved, that the wisdom of generations is pouring into your life, not through textbooks or rituals, but through a voice that sounds like home. In today's message, we'll walk through the mystical connection you share with her, the signs you may have missed, the blessings she's trying to pass on, and how to live your life in harmony with what she always wished for you. A life of courage, peace, and soul-deep joy. If this resonates, if your heart has already remembered her, then stay. Like, share, or subscribe if you feel called. Because what you're feeling, it's real. And she's still with you. Gate 1. The dreams that return again and again. Her spirit has been calling your name. Sagittarius, you've always had a curious relationship with sleep. Unlike others who drift off to rest, your soul tends to travel. And lately, these journeys at night have become different. Softer but more vivid. A familiar face keeps appearing. Not haunting but comforting. You can't quite recall the words when you wake up, but the feeling lingers. A warmth, a scent, a look that pierces time. It's her. Your grandmother. Whether she was a woman who held you close in life or one whose stories were only told to you through family photos and whispered memories, there's something about her presence in your dreams that feels intimate, ancient, deeply personal, and yet strangely healing. These dreams may have started subtly. Perhaps you saw her once, sitting quietly in a chair, smiling but saying nothing. Perhaps she stood in the distance, her hand reaching out. Maybe she was cooking an old recipe from your childhood, or singing a lullaby you thought you had forgotten. And then it happened again, and again, always just enough to stir something in your chest. A knowing, a longing. Sagittarius, dreams like this are not echoes of the past. They are visitations. Our loved ones in spirit often choose the dream world as their meeting ground with us. Not because it's the only way, but because it's the gentlest way. When our minds are quiet and our souls are more open. When the ego steps aside and our hearts return to truth. This is when she slips in. To remind you, I'm still here. I've never left you. And I have something to tell you. You may have dismissed it at first. You may have thought it was just your mind processing grief or nostalgia. But what if it wasn't? What if, just beyond the veil, she has been waiting for the right moment to reach through? To hold you the way only she could, to remind you that love doesn't die, it transforms. There's a Sagittarius man I once worked with, Mateo. He'd lost his grandmother when he was just 12. He remembered her as the only person in his childhood who made him feel safe. Years later, while going through a painful divorce, he began dreaming of her nightly. First it was small. She would sit beside him silently while he cried. In one dream, she simply handed him a small blue bird and kissed his forehead. It wasn't until months later, after a long night of heartbreak, that she finally spoke. "You are not breaking," she said. "You are remembering who you are." When Mateo woke up, something inside him had shifted. The pain was still there, but so was peace. That's how these dreams work. They don't erase the pain. They hold it with you. They soften the jagged edges of grief and fear and remind you that somewhere, in a higher realm, someone still believes in your wholeness, even when you don't. Sagittarius, your dreams are not meaningless. They are stitched with sacred threads, especially when they repeat, when the same figure shows up, when the feeling is too real to ignore. Your grandmother's spirit is trying to reach the deepest part of you, not just to comfort, but to guide. Perhaps you've noticed certain images, a candle burning, a window opening, a garden in full bloom. These aren't random. Spirit often speaks in metaphor. The candle might symbolize hope, the window a choice, the garden a promise. Your grandmother is speaking in symbols because the soul understands what the mind does not. Her messages may feel like puzzles, but they are keys to open what has long been locked away inside you. And what is she unlocking? Your softness, your roots, your right to be vulnerable without shame, your right to feel watched over not in fear but in love. For many Sagittarians, childhood was a journey of movement, of learning to be self-reliant, of sometimes hiding your deepest sensitivity beneath jokes, distractions, adventures. But your grandmother's spirit sees through all of that. She doesn't ask you to be strong. She doesn't need you to impress her. She just wants you to be, to rest, to allow yourself to be held again. And that, dear soul, is what she's been offering you in these dreams. A return, a safe place, a reminder that you are still someone's grandchild, and always will be. This isn't about clinging to the past. It's about awakening to a present you didn't know was available. One where spirit loves you, watches you, offers you guidance as softly as a breeze, as steadily as a heartbeat. And when you wake from these dreams, even if you forget the details, you carry her love in your bones. You may find yourself speaking slower, listening more. You may notice a calmness that wasn't there before. You may feel held, not by logic but by something deeper. That's her. So don't dismiss these dreams, Sagittarius. Write them down. Speak them aloud. Light a candle in her name. Call her in, because the veil is thinner than you think. And she is not done being your guide. She is not done showing you how deeply you are loved. Not now, not ever. Gate 2. Who she was, and the sacred bond between your souls. Sagittarius, there's a reason she visits you. Not someone else. A reason it's your dream she walks through. Spirit chooses with care. And the souls that find each other beyond time and space have often known each other across lifetimes. Your grandmother may have been born generations before you, but her spirit has long recognized yours. Not just as family, but as kin of the soul. She was more than someone who sat in silence or served tea on Sundays. Whether you remember her as the heartbeat of your childhood home, or as a photograph framed in a forgotten corner, her energy lives in your bones. Perhaps you carry her eyes, her stubborn resilience, her quiet magic. Perhaps you've walked through life with her voice somewhere in your chest. Even if you've never consciously heard it, she is part of your spiritual lineage. And in this lifetime you were chosen to carry a piece of her legacy forward. Not as a burden, but as a blessing. In many families, the grandmother is the quiet pillar. She holds the secrets. She remembers the stories. She weaves strength into the fabric of a family's survival. But often that strength comes with sacrifice, silence, sorrow left unspoken. Perhaps your grandmother carried grief no one ever named. Perhaps she lived a life of service, of duty, of waiting for the world to see her as more than her roles. Perhaps she was deeply loved, or deeply misunderstood. But she sees you, and she chose you, Sagittarius, because your spirit is free enough to break what needed breaking, to speak what no one else could say, to soften where generations had hardened. She sees in you a continuation, but also a liberation. I once sat with a Sagittarius woman named Helena, who told me about her dreams of a grandmother she never met. I always thought it was just my imagination, she said. But she keeps appearing. She holds my hands. She braids my hair. She tells me I'm not crazy for feeling too much. It's like she knows everything I've been through, even the things I've never told anyone. When Helena traced her family history, she discovered that this grandmother had once been a poet, silenced by the expectations of her time. Helena, too, was a writer, one who had always felt she was born in the wrong era. Maybe, she whispered, I wasn't. Maybe she's finishing her story through me. That's the kind of soul bond we're speaking of here, Sagittarius. Your grandmother's spirit recognizes your path because part of it began with her. Her dreams became seeds in your soul. Her longing transformed in you becomes purpose. And now from the other side, she is doing what perhaps she couldn't in life. Nurturing you, encouraging you, reminding you of your true essence. You who carry light and fire. You who feel more than most. You who sometimes doubt yourself because your path doesn't look like anyone else's. She sees your heart, Sagittarius. and it reminds her of her own, of the girl she once was before the world told her who she could be. You are not just her grandchild. You are her spiritual continuation, and in that truth lies a healing bridge across generations. There is something sacred in the role of the grandmother. Across cultures, she is seen as a keeper of ancestral wisdom, a living prayer, a connection to the divine feminine. In your case, that role did not end with her final breath. It evolved, it grew deeper, and now through your openness, especially in dream space, she is able to continue sharing that wisdom with you. Have you ever wondered why you know things without knowing how? Why you trust your gut even when logic says otherwise? Why sometimes a phrase you've never heard slips from your lips with uncanny truth? That's her. Her memory lives in your intuition. You were never meant to walk this earth without guidance. And your grandmother, even in spirit, takes her role seriously. She's not here just to comfort. She's here to guide, to pass on her spiritual knowing, to remind you that you come from resilience, that your fire, your laughter, your stubborn hope, it all began long before you were born. And sometimes she visits you in dreams not to speak, but to transfer energy. You may wake feeling stronger, lighter, more grounded. You may feel like a part of you has been remembered. And that's exactly what happened. You were reconnected with your roots. Sagittarius, part of your destiny is to move forward, to travel, to expand. But to do so with depth, you must also remember. And she is the one helping you remember not just who you are, but who you come from. There's a reason her spirit keeps returning. A reason you keep dreaming of her even if it's been years. She has something to give you, and maybe something to ask. To live in a way that honors the stories untold. To love more deeply than fear allows. To speak truth even when your voice shakes. To follow your freedom, not as escape but as sacred inheritance. You don't owe her your life, Sagittarius. You are her life. And the greatest gift you can give her in return is to become the fullest version of yourself. That's what she's always wanted. That's what she's whispering in every dream. I see you, child. And I am proud. Gate 3. The whispers within dreams. How she leads you through doubt and fear toward clarity and trust. Sagittarius, if you've ever woken from a dream with tears in your eyes but peace in your chest, you already know the kind of love she brings. Your grandmother isn't just visiting for nostalgia's sake. She's not merely showing up to say, I miss you from the beyond. She is arriving in your dreams as a healer, a guide, and most importantly, a voice of calm when your waking world feels anything but. In those strange, beautiful moments between sleep and sunrise, she's reaching into your heart and pulling you gently back toward truth. Because lately you've been questioning so much. You've had days where you've wondered if you're doing enough, if you're being enough. You've second-guessed your instincts. You've doubted your timing. You've felt the tension between your freedom-loving spirit and the deep emotional pulls that seem to confuse you more than clarify. You've sat in silence, unsure whether the path you're on is the one you're truly meant for. And that's when she appears. Sometimes it's not even with words. Sometimes she's simply there, watching you in the dream as you wander through unfamiliar places. Sometimes she's holding an object like a book, a candle, a mirror. And sometimes she walks beside you in total silence, offering no answers, only presence. But even that changes something. You see, in spirit, she's become something purer than any role she once held. She's become clarity, stillness, a portal of truth. And when your mind is too loud and your heart too tired, she shows up in your dreams to do what the best elders have always done. Not tell you what to do, but remind you who you are. I once spoke with a Sagittarius man named Elijah. His grandmother had passed when he was a teenager, and for years afterward, he rarely thought of her. Life moved fast. He built a business, a life, an identity, but underneath it all, he carried anxiety he couldn't explain. I just always felt like I was failing, he said, even when things looked successful. Then one night he dreamt of her. She was sitting in a rocking chair under a tree he didn't recognize. He sat beside her and said nothing. She looked at him and whispered, "You don't have to run anymore. You're already enough." When he woke, something shifted. He cried, not from sadness but because he felt, for the first time in years, safe. That's the kind of healing a grandmother's spirit brings. Sagittarius, you are someone who carries wisdom far beyond your years. But that doesn't mean you don't have moments of forgetting. Moments when the light inside feels dim. Moments when self-doubt creeps in like a shadow, convincing you that you're behind, that you've made a mistake, that you're alone in this world of uncertainty. That's when her whispers come. Not always in sentences, sometimes in sensations. A breeze across your skin as you sleep, a scent that wraps around you in the middle of a dream, lavender, cinnamon, old wood, something unmistakably her. Sometimes she shows you symbols, a doorway you hesitate to walk through, a river you're too afraid to cross. And then she appears, not to push you but to stand beside you. She's telling you, you are strong enough, you are wise enough, and you are not alone. Her guidance is subtle because your growth is sacred. She's not here to make your choices for you, but to awaken the part of you that already knows the answer. And what she whispers into your soul during those dreams becomes a kind of compass, one that slowly rewires your inner landscape, one that helps you recognize red flags faster, one that urges you to protect your energy, one that reminds you that not every detour is a failure, and not every delay is a punishment. Some are protection, some are preparation. Sagittarius, she sees the crossroads in your life, the moments when your freedom feels like loneliness, the moments when your courage gets mistaken for recklessness. She sees how much you've carried for others, how many times you've smiled through silent storms, how deeply you long to be understood without having to explain yourself. And that's why she's come, not with judgment but with light. Her dreams are like medicine. Even if they confuse you in the morning, they begin their work in your body. You may find yourself making different choices, speaking more gently to yourself, saying no where you used to say yes, letting go of what doesn't resonate anymore. Not because she told you what to do, but because she reminded you of your power. Her message is simple, but it will change your life if you let it. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to remember who you are. And who you are, Sagittarius, is someone born with fire in your spirit and wisdom in your blood. Someone meant to expand not just outward but inward. Someone chosen not just to dream, but to believe in those dreams, especially when they come from spirit. So the next time she appears, smiling in the distance, stirring something unspoken within, pay attention. She's speaking. She's guiding. She's wrapping you in the kind of love that doesn't need words. And if you listen, you'll hear it, even in waking life. You're not lost. You're becoming. Gate 4. Opening your heart to her message and living the life she always hoped for you. Sagittarius, it's one thing to be visited in dreams, to feel the hush of spirit wrap around you at 3 a.m., to receive the symbols, the whispers, the gentle nudges from beyond. But it's another thing entirely, to open your heart fully to what those messages ask of you. Because when a soul like your grandmother's returns, not to haunt but to heal, not to warn but to awaken, she brings more than comfort. She brings a call. And that call is simple but sacred, live. Not half alive. Not guarded or afraid. Not dimming yourself to fit into someone else's story, but boldly, brightly with the full flame of who you are. Sagittarius, your grandmother knows what it's like to live small. Perhaps she once did. Out of necessity, out of fear, out of a culture or a generation that didn't let women speak their truth or chase their longings. She may have had dreams tucked into drawers, letters never sent, songs never sung aloud. But even in silence she held on to something. You are the continuation of the dream. You are the chapter she never got to write. And now that she's free in spirit, in love and light, she doesn't want you to repeat her story. She wants you to rewrite it. That's why she visits. That's why she chooses you. You with the questions. You with the restless fire. You who feel like you were born for more than survival. You who sometimes carry guilt for wanting joy when others settled for endurance. She's telling you, it's your turn now. Take the joy. Say yes to the love. Build the home I never had. Write the poem. Travel far. Dance. Forgive. Let go. Be kind to yourself. Be fearless in your authenticity. Live the way I always hoped you would. There's a woman I once read for, also a Sagittarius, named Amara. Her grandmother raised her, but they were never particularly close. She was strict, practical, always told me not to dream too big, Amara said. After her grandmother passed, she began dreaming of her. Always in strange places. Gardens, mountaintops, even outer space. It didn't make sense, Amara laughed. But she kept telling me, go. Don't wait. It wasn't until years later, when Amara finally quit her corporate job to start a healing retreat in Costa Rica, that it clicked. She was trying to set me free, Amara whispered. Maybe she couldn't in life, but in spirit she was cheering me on. Sagittarius, your journey may not be conventional. Your dreams may not make sense to others. But they don't have to. They were given to you, not them. And your grandmother sees the beauty in them, because they reflect what her soul once longed for, even if she couldn't speak it. So the question now becomes, will you accept her blessing? Not as pressure, not as expectation, but as a quiet revolution of love, a chance to live your life not just for yourself, but as a tribute to her, to all the women before you who weren't allowed to shine. This doesn't mean you need to change everything overnight. Spirit never demands, it only invites. But the next time you feel a pull towards something beautiful, pay attention. The next time you hesitate to speak your truth, but feel a warm courage rising in your chest, know she's near. The next time you cry for no reason, but feel strangely comforted, know that her hands are still holding your heart. And in those moments, remind yourself, I am not doing this alone. I am living the love she dreamed of, because Sagittarius, that's what she wants most. Not for you to mourn her, not to live in fear of doing it wrong, but to take the baton she's passed you and run, wildly, freely, in your truth, in your joy, in your sacred yes to life. So open the door, say the prayer, write her a letter, light a candle and whisper, I'm ready now, ready to live, ready to heal, ready to honor her not just by remembering her, but by embodying the light she sees in you. That is the full circle of love. That is the moment grief turns into grace. That is the legacy she left for you. Not in objects or money, but in courage, in soul, in spiritual inheritance. And now, dear Sagittarius, it's yours. Conclusion. Her love lives on in your breath, your choices, your light. Sagittarius, if your heart feels full right now, if tears are gently finding their way to the corners of your eyes, it's because something ancient and sacred has just been touched. Not a memory, not a fantasy, but a truth that has always lived quietly inside you. She never left. She's been walking beside you all along. In your laughter, she smiles. In your tears, she holds you. And in your dreams, she speaks, not just to soothe you, but to stir you awake to who you truly are. You were never meant to carry her pain. You were born to carry her promise. The promise that you would live a life bold enough for both of you. The promise that silence would end with you, and truth would begin. The promise that love would no longer be bound by guilt or shame, but set free, like wind over the sea. You are not broken, Sagittarius. You are becoming. And her visits in the dream world are not just signs, they are sacred rites, anointings, reminders from the divine feminine that you are held, chosen, and deeply, fiercely loved. So take this message and let it wrap around your life like a shawl of protection. Let it become your courage when the road feels dark. Let it soften your fear when the unknown rises. Let it guide you home to yourself. And if this message stirred something inside you, if you felt her presence, even for a moment, please like, share, and subscribe. Not just for the algorithm, but for the soul. Because in doing so, you say yes to your healing, your remembrance, your return. This is Zodiac Wisdom. My name is Sophia. And you, dear Sagittarius, are never alone again.